Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth. This program features in-depth conversations with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile Here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
Welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. And with a great note of professionalism, there's my script. Get the business out of the way first. If you are watching this show on kgradb.com, you can, if you're watching or listening, you can watch it for the first half hour if you are not a subscriber. To become a subscriber to Meanwhile Here on Earth, just go to KGRA Digital Broadcasting website, scroll all the way down to the bottom, click on Join Now, and then enter the name Peter as your password when you subscribe, and you will get 30% off. That is right. I'm not going to do a monologue per se today. We have a lot of interesting material to cover with some very special guests, but this scheduling was more or less done in the last few days. Our guest for this evening was going to be veteran UFO and police investigator James Clarkson, a dear friend and close colleague. But James has had to postpone his appearance, and I just wanted to say what kind of caused us to meet was his first book, a remarkable book called Tell My Story, June Crane, the Air Force, and UFOs. June Crane was a woman who worked as a secretary with a top secret clearance at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, who Jim met and became close friends with. And toward the end of her life, she shared a number of things with him about what she had learned. And a more credible witness you couldn't encounter. And before she passed, she said, "Tell my story," and left all of her relevant paperwork to him. And he wrote an absolutely unique book as far as I'm concerned, and one I highly recommend. Jim, we'll miss you tonight, but we'll look forward to seeing you at a later date. First guest. Robert Salas was born in Chandler, Arizona, and served 7 years on active duty before separating from the United States Air Force in 1971. While on active duty, he worked as a weapons controller, flew target drones, and commanded intercontinental ballistic missiles as a launch officer. He was an Air Force missile propulsion engineer on the Titan III program, and from 1971 to 73, worked as a safety and reliability engineer for Martin Marietta Aerospace and Rockwell International on space shuttle design proposals. From 1974 until his retirement in 1995, he was employed by the Federal Aviation Administration as an aircraft structures certification engineer, and from 1991 to 93, served as an FAA attaché to the U.S. Embassy in Indonesia, advising that government on aircraft certification. In 1998, Salas earned a Master's of Education degree from the University of Washington, then was employed as a high school mathematics teacher until 2016. In 2005, he published the book Faded Giant with co-author James Klotz, which details the UFO incident he was involved in while stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana, in 1967. In 2013, he published his second book, Unidentified, the UFO Phenomena, providing new details on the phenomenon as a whole. On September 27, 2010, Robert Salas co-sponsored a press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., where he and 6 other ex-military witnesses testified to the reality of UFO incidents at U.S. nuclear weapons bases. In May of 2013, he participated in the citizens' hearing on disclosure at the National Press Club, also in Washington. Robert has spoken in numerous U.S. cities. Well, there's a Freudian pun. And at international conferences in Norway, France, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Germany, Italy, Bulgaria, South Africa, Costa Rica, Peru, Mexico, Argentina, and Brazil. He has been publicly speaking about these incidents at UFO conferences, in print media, on the radio, and television since 1996. Robert Salas, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth.
Peter, it's great to see you again.
And I should say welcome back. You were one of my earlier guests, and it's wonderful to have you return, especially for the reason that you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Thank you for inviting me.
You bet. Ryan Sprague is a lead investigator and co-host of Mysteries Decoded on the CW network, is an upcoming regular on Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, and Beyond the Unknown on the Travel Channel. He's the author of Somewhere in the Skies, A Human Approach to the UFO Phenomena, and is also the creator and host of the Somewhere in the Skies podcast. He's interviewed military witnesses and intelligence officers directly on UFOs, writing for such news sites as The Debrief, Open Minds Magazine, Rogue Planet, and Medium, speaking on the UFO topic. He has been featured on ABC News, Fox News, 7 News Australia, and the Science Channel. He has consulted and been featured in Newsweek, the New York Post, and Vice. When he isn't talking UFOs, he's a professional playwright and screenwriter, and I should add, very good actor, with various productions of his plays having premiered across the United States and soon in Italy. His feature film, Reverie Lane, will premiere on Amazon Prime and Vimeo in early 2022. And Ryan, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show as well. And you will be. Jason Mclellan, our third guest, is a Phoenix-based podcaster, author, TV personality, and journalist who has invested more than a decade in researching, writing about, and reporting on UFOs and other strange topics. Jason has the unique experience of working professionally as a full-time UFO researcher and journalist, and serving as a co-organizer and technical producer of the largest annual UFO conference in the world, recognized by the 2015 Guinness Book of Records, just to make that official, for more than 6 years. As a founding member of the UFO news organization Open Minds, he wrote for and edited the now-defunct Open Minds magazine, an internationally distributed print magazine all about UFOs and extraterrestrial life, which we miss very much. He also worked for Tom DeLonge's transmedia company, To the Stars. In 2016, his book, Only Weirdos See UFOs, An Introduction to the Public's Misinterpretation of Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, Misperception of Unidentified Aerial Phenomena and Extraterrestrial Life. Jason currently co-stars in the Travel Discovery Plus miniseries Roswell, The Final Verdict. He also co-stars on History's Hangar One, the UFO Files, and has appeared on a variety of other networks, including Sci-Fi, National Geographic, Amazon Prime, and Netflix. Media outlets around the world have featured and highlighted Jason's work, including the Huffington Post, Geek Magazine, and Tech Times. In his continuing exploration of the strange, Jason hosts the UFO podcast Unknown, in addition to a variety of other shows at Rogue Planet TV. And Jason, a pleasure to welcome you to Meanwhile Here on Earth.
The pleasure is all mine, Peter. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, and it's partially mine too. Our
Glad to
final
hear
guest.
that.
Shane Hurd has spent his government career in the fields of civil engineering, geographic information systems, and information technologies, and is a graduate of Arizona State University's Certified Manager Program. As a member of the space race generation, he has been a lifelong space and science nerd and sci-fi geek. It was the Phoenix Lights incident in his hometown of Phoenix, though, that sparked his interest in UFOs. Since that time, he has studied the subject and ultimately, in 2015, joined MUFON, becoming a field investigator in 2017. He's now a STAR team member and was recently appointed Assistant State Director for Arizona MUFON in June of 2020. He published his first book entitled Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, A Beginner's Guide to Researching UFOs. He is a musician, a car guy, amateur astronomer, horse owner, and enjoys a good bourbon now and then. None of you stated your alcoholic preferences in your introduction.
Important things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Shane, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of this and really looking forward to this discussion because certainly when it comes to UAP, nuclear things are very important. So it's fascinating and should be a great discussion.
Yeah. Bob, obviously I want to begin with you. Some time back, you announced that you were creating this initiative for this new event, which will take place next month on October 19th. Can you tell us something about how you came to put this together, your reasons for doing it, and what we can expect to see on October 19th at the National Press Club?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I think we have a very unique point in time here. Now that the DOD has admitted that this phenomenon is real, it's not imaginary, officially and in writing, and we haven't heard those kind of words from the government before. So we've got a unique opportunity, but I felt strongly after the report came out that we were in for kind of a repeat of what we've seen before with this phenomenon. That is, we would get a little bit of acknowledgement of this and that, but nothing of substance. I'm convinced that in order to get to the issue, to the substance of the matter, we're going to have open hearings.
Yes.
And in order to have open hearings, we're going to have to put pressure on Congress. I know there have been a couple of congressmen and senator maybe who have mentioned open hearings, but knowing what I do about past events, of course, I've been researching this for over 25 years. I've been public for over 25 years. What usually happens is we get a little dribs and drabs, and the subject seems to fall by the wayside. But so the purpose of this press conference is in particular to focus on the UFO nuclear weapons connection, which has seemingly not been talked about too much in the media.
Yes.
Lately. So we're going to bring forward myself and three other strong witnesses, all ex-military, and we're going to give our details on very specific incidents, but they only represent the tip of the iceberg, as you know.
Yes.
There have been hundreds, literally hundreds, of incidents that have been documented primarily by Robert Hastings in his book, UFOs and Nukes. And I want to give a big shout out to Robert. He's not feeling well these days. Otherwise, he along my side at the press conference, but
Yes.
he has been very helpful to me in getting things put together, and so he'll be missed. But that's the purpose. We're going to have these people talk their stories and provide detailed evidence of what transpired. We'll also have a press package to give to the press present.
Excellent.
And it will be live streamed.
Outstanding.
Free for everyone to watch.
Wow. A question as a natural archivist, and knowing the impact that authentic declassified documents, not something put together in somebody's basement, but absolutely gilt-edged, can have on a reader who is simply unfamiliar with them. The five of us have looked at these things for years, if not decades, and it's kind of second nature. But are you considering including any official declassified documentation in the press packages?
Absolutely. The press package will include some declassified documents. I have already come up with what I call my briefing book. It's been sent to members of Congress and senators. They've acknowledged receipt. So there's no way they can state that they don't know about these things, or they don't have official records of them.
Yes.
And by them, I mean these incidents involving UFOs and nuclear weapons bases. So the idea here now is to put pressure on them to have open hearings so we can bring more witnesses forward. Of course, many of the witnesses are in the background still because of, the usual reasons.
Yep.
Ridicule, fear of loss of job, or
sure,
what have you. But if hearings are open to the public and they are official government hearings, I'm sure a lot of them will come forward.
Now, another question for you before I open up to our panel here, any questions that they may want to begin putting forward. Is this happening on a day when Congress is in session? Have you checked?
Yes, I was assured. Of course, we don't know for sure, but I'm pretty well assured that Congress will be in session during that week, the week of the 18th through the 22nd of October.
Okay,
we're hoping to have meetings with members of Congress. I've sent out requests for meetings,
yes.
and I've had some nibbles, but nothing definite yet.
Okay, very good. Gentlemen, Ryan, Jason, Shane, questions for Bob?
Sure, I'll start, and I do want to apologize. My mic was on mute during your introductions, Peter. I wasn't ignoring anyone, but hopefully you can hear me now.
Unforgivable. Race,
unforgivable.
Push the button.
Why am I here? And not my first good impression with Mr. Salas. I'd love to ask you, Bob. We got this report recently. We are supposedly getting, or they're trying to pass a bill for the 2022 Authorization Act for a permanent UFO office. And it seems that the one glaring agency that we're hearing nothing from is the Department of Energy, which presumably would be the one that I think would handle these nuclear situations with UAP. So I was curious if there was any ever dealings you had with the Department of Energy in, briefing and at the National Press Club. And why? Why do you think that this preliminary assessment we got didn't mention any, they mentioned restricted airspace, but there was no mention of nuclear sites. Why do you think that is? And why aren't we hearing anything from the Department of Energy? Those would be my two questions.
Great.
Yeah, well, I have not had any dealings with the Department of Energy. I'm I know they are responsible for the production, I think, of nuclear weapons. And originally they were in charge of the entire atomic program. But I'm more interested in getting into the files of the CIA, DIA, DARPA, and those other agencies. It's encouraging that DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, was one of the first that was contacted by Harry Reid, or actually they contacted him when he set up ATIP. We know the agencies that have these secrets all locked up. It's just a matter of prying those open, and Congress has the power to do that, no question. So that's why open hearings are critical.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ryan, what was your second question?
I think you basically answered it, but yeah, why do you think in the preliminary assessment we got that there was no mention of nuclear site incursions? We heard restricted airspace, but no mention whatsoever. If they're going to go with this potential threat thing, why wouldn't they mention nuclear sites at all, in your personal opinion? Yeah,
that's a mystery to me too. And that's another reason I want to bring this issue front and center. The first instance that I was able to research UFOs being involved in nuclear facilities was over Hanford nuclear site, where they were producing plutonium in 1945, even before the first atomic bomb test. UFOs were intercepted on radar. Pursuit aircraft were sent out against them, and then from there on, it was continuous. There was continuous interest in the area of UFOs and nuclear facilities.
If I may jump in for a moment, I've given that question some thought as well, and not surprising to us, when the report dropped in June, Shakespeare, as usual, got it right, and it wasn't completely much ado about nothing, but it was so coy with a hammer. It might be the Russians, it might be the Chinese, it might be some super secret agency or office within our government or military industrial complex that we, the Navy, are not aware of, or who knows, it might just be. This, of course, is nonsensical in that we know, as well as we can know, that they know that there is a very real likelihood that some, stress not all, truly anomalous UFOs do represent advanced technology from parts unknown under intelligent control. But for me, that report was not the report. It was the first of, if they can get away with it, many, many, many reports that they will drag along for the next several hundred years if they possibly could. Each one, we've discovered something else, or we have a little more information to give you. What we can be assured of is that they will not willingly ever put anything in that they feel might panic the public or sound too science fiction-y or be too exotic. Hence, we'll never hear in any of the reports that come about abductions, about missing pregnancies, about hybrids, about these areas of study that are quite real, but to the general public are problematic. And if we were to say these intelligences, these technologies have the power to shut down our most advanced, most deadly weapon systems, that could be upsetting for some people. But in fact, it's a core fact, as you know better than most people, Bob.
Yeah, that would be a major story. But even the bigger story is the very fact that our government, and other governments around the world have been keeping these secrets for decades.
Yes.
Decades, literally. And I think that's the big big elephant in the room that the governments just don't want to admit to, that they have indeed been keeping these secrets. And I think that's the really big story here.
Again, before turning it back to our panel, military hubris, human ego, the idea that if we were to make even a token admission, either via the president's office or what have you, it would mean admitting that the leading figures in our government who were briefed to know what was going on have all been unindicted co-conspirators in the greatest cover-up in the history of humanity. And they're a little sensitive about that. Go figure. Gentlemen, next question for Robert Salas.
Well, I'll jump in with one. And first of all, Bob, I just want to congratulate you and say kudos for putting this together. I mean, that is no small task, and it's hugely appreciated. I was really excited to see when I saw that you'd managed to put this together. But I know we've all been excitedly watching, kind of the shift in public attitude toward this topic. We've seen the government's maybe renewed interest in this subject. A lot going on right now. Certainly the climate seems to have shifted a little bit, but how do you see the attitude within the government and the reaction to an event like this at the press club as being any different from how it's been the several times before that there have been UFO-related events at the National Press Club? And when this topic, I mean, this is certainly not the first time you brought this topic to the public's attention, and you've spoken before about it at the National Press Club. So how do you see this event, given the current temperament, the current climate with this topic? How do you see it being different this time around?
Well, a couple of ways, Jason. Number one, I'm not alone in this. We're going to have to have a public outcry for more information. The ODNI, Office of Defense, National Intelligence, in its report stated they have to look into the possibility that this is a national security issue. That's in writing. That's in print. And Congress knows it. The DOD knows it. And they're going to have to address it. Well, I'm pressing the issue on UFOs and nukes, and that is definitely an area of interest of national security. So there's no backing away from that topic now. It's on public record, and so I'm going to press the issue with this press club, and it will. The reason I wanted it to be a stream live all over the world, basically, because it's going to be on YouTube, is to bring public pressure to bear on our Congress, our government, to look into this particular topic, which they have not done seriously before. Does that answer?
It certainly does. Absolutely. And I agree with you completely. I mean, it for us right here, we five, it seems weird to keep repeating these things over and over and over, but you're exactly right. I mean, the general public still, even though these stories have been told countless times, they're still not aware that these things are happening. And even, I always have to remind people, going back to very baby steps, even though the government has been saying these things on the record, the large majority of the general public is still stuck at that very baby step of believing that UFOs, just unknown objects, exist in our airspace. That's the baby step we're still stuck at with a lot of the general public. Exactly right, Jason. We need to get the public to fully not only realize but accept the idea that we are indeed being visited. The answer to the question, are these extraterrestrial objects, is a relatively simple logic. And you and I, we all know the logic. It's very easy. If these what has been observed could not have been produced on planet Earth, then it must have been produced elsewhere.
And by these observations, the extreme speeds flying above, Mach 5, making 90-degree turns, silently hovering, those kinds of things, we just can't do here.
Frankly, on a very elemental level, it doesn't really matter at this stage in the game, at the very, very introductory exploration of this. It doesn't matter where they're from, right? If they're extraterrestrial or not. The very fact that they exist and they're doing what they do, that should concern some people and encourage everybody to want to look into it more. So,
absolutely.
That's good to see right now from the scientific community.
And we do have the scientific community taking a look now.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Recently, AIAA, is it? That organization, Aeronautics and Astronautics, has taken an interest in the subject. We have more and more. I know Abby Loeb, a Harvard astrophysicist, is taking a strong interest in it, and Michio Kaku, etc. So I think it's coming. Things are changing. I definitely think things are changing in the scientific community and in the public in general.
Without question. And for well over 3 years now, there has been an incredibly noticeable dissipation in the power of ridicule. 5 years ago, most people that had an interest in the subject but weren't, identified with it like we are, would essentially keep it to themselves or share it with people that they knew it was okay to share it with without a fear of ridicule. And one thing I think we can say now that is creating a healthier and healthier climate for information like this to be presented in a compelling way is more and more people care less and less what other people think about what they think about this subject. And that's landmark. It also makes perfect sense that the event that you're creating, as powerful as it was in 2013 with Steve Bassett's remarkable disclosure event at the National Press Club, to have people like me there testifying, as well as people like you with a solid military background, is to do this with colleagues with gilt-edged military backgrounds. It has a certain gravitas that most regular folks respect. Oh, you served, you had this rank, you alleged to have been involved in this incident. I will take you more seriously than somebody with a civilian background. Right or wrong, that's the way we function to a degree.
Right. Well, I'd love to piggyback off of that quickly, Peter. The stigma and ridicule shedding, that was one of the big things they said in that assessment, is they want to shed the stigma within the military so that they will report these things. And
Exactly.
That was extremely hopeful to hear that. And I can only imagine, and also the DoD saying, if you see a UFO or UAP, you have to report it within, I think, 2 weeks or something they said. I mean, this is uncanny what they're kind of, we've never seen anything like that. So I'd love to know, Bob, since this report has come out and since, that ridicule factor is shedding within the military and I guess in the intelligence agencies, are you seeing an influx of more reports of nuclear UFO sightings, or will we hear of new cases at the conference possibly?
Yes, I'll mention quite a few cases besides the four that will be speaking. I'll mention other witnesses. Of course, some of them have passed, but just as a teaser, there's information of fairly recent cases of UFOs over nuclear weapons facilities that I'll just mention. But again, some of these witnesses are reluctant to come forward. Some are still in the military. And don't want to be named. But so even though the ridicule factor is just one factor, of course. The other factor is concern about their careers, their jobs, even concern about their safety. So these are still hurdles that need to be overcome. And I think open hearings will go a great deal to overcome those.
Yeah.
I had a question for
Please.
Bob, if I could.
Yes.
First of all, I wanted to say, thank you for the presentation you made at the MUFON symposium. It was fascinating. I learned a lot from that. It was really great. So I really appreciated that. Kind of tagging along on this recently released report. One thing I think is an elephant in the room. First of all, I really appreciate that the Navy's, taken the lead on this topic and, this investigation and so forth. But what really stands out to me is, where's the Air Force on this thing? I mean, do you think that they just have had enough after Project Blue Book and they're just keeping their head down and they don't want to participate anymore? Or what could be the reason? And to me, it screams loudly, where are they and what are they doing? They probably have a bunch of information behind the scenes that could be of use. And I don't know if they're cooperating. I suppose they must be with the congressional report and all those requirements.
Yeah, Shane, that's a great question. I'm chuckling. First of all, I'm an Air Force Academy grad, right? And I considered myself a professional lifetime officer before I resigned. But the Air Force is probably hiding their head in shame right now because even though they, in 1969, they issued a statement on UFOs stating they were not of national security interest, and as a result of the so-called Condon investigation, which was a complete whitewash, by the way, and I talk about that at length in my latest book. But since 1969, the official position of the Air Force is what I just said. It's not of great interest to them. It's not a national security issue. And therefore, they were not going to evaluate reports, ask for reports, or study reports on UFOs. But it wasn't long after that they started having more sightings over nuclear bases. And I know in 1975, for example, there were, again, sightings at Malmstrom Air Force Base, 76, 77, on and on. 79, I could list quite a few instances up until, like I say, 2018. Reports of nuclear incursions by UFOs at nuclear weapons bases. So the Air Force is trying to hide, but I don't think they'll be successful for long, at least not after our presentations.
Yeah.
Great.
As a young student of ufology, I encountered the work of Dr. Edward U. Condon, who headed up that committee. And the more I learned about him, the more he seemed the exact wrong person for the job, dedicated to debunking. And I'm tempted to say, irreverent as it is, it might be more appropriate to call it the Condom Report. But it's my show, and I can say that.
Well said.
Can you say that on air, Peter?
Let's
all say it together. Condom Report. Condom Report.
Now
it's all right
for
to quote me, and FCC, here I am. I think that's okay in this day and age. The reality of being a military officer and being caught up in an event like this is an abstraction to any one of us that has not had it happen. And over the decades, I've spoken with a small number of former military personnel who have shared with me bits and pieces of events. I know we're not here to talk about your book, Bob, but the impact of that event in 1967 had to have transformed you. Obviously, you couldn't go public as a zealot to get to the bottom of this in public at that time, but could you characterize the change that you went through, having lived through watching, essentially the nukes, the UFOs that were above ground that you were hearing referred to, knock out the ICBMs under your watch?
Yeah, Peter, I can tell you that was life-changing, no doubt about it. Before the incident, I didn't think about UFOs at all, even though there were newspaper reports in the Great Falls Tribune all that week and previous weeks. I was reading reports about lights in the sky. I just laughed it off. I'll tell you what really got to me was the abject fear those guys upstairs were feeling as they were confronting this object. They were very, very close to it. There was a pulsating red-orange light just hovering there silently. In fact, the next day, of course, I was sworn to secrecy. I had to sign a non-disclosure statement. Sure. But the guards, a group of the guards called me at home the next morning after it happened and literally begged me to come and talk to them and see if we could figure out what the heck was going on. And I had to turn them down. To me, that was what stuck with me. Let's just say that it just stuck with me for over 27 years that I had to stay silent about this.
Yeah.
And thank God for Ray Fowler.
Yes.
Who you're aware of, I'm sure.
Sure.
Who is still alive, by the way.
He sure is. Working on a new book. He is.
Oh, wow.
And if it wasn't for him, I certainly could not have come forward, because it was his story in the Christian Science Monitor in 1973 that Timothy Good somehow got a hold of and put in his book Above Top Secret. And as a result of my reading a small paragraph in that book, that I decided to come forward after receiving documents from the Air Force under the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah. Well, not surprisingly, Bob, Ray Fowler wrote a really elegant foreword to your and James Klotz's book, Faded Giant. And if I may take a liberty, the weapons technology when you were a nuclear missiles officer, you were overseeing a battery of Minutemen missiles, correct?
Right, Minuteman 1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, I've collected some images here, and I'd just like to go through them fairly quickly. This is a fairly substantial missile, and I know that even all these years later, it would be inappropriate to ask you specifics about its power, how many megatons, etc. But I just wanted to, sometimes images, and again, I'm a very visual person, can bring a point home and underscore words. We had these underground at locations around this country, in other countries, ready to go on a moment's notice. And you could be by a location and not even realize you were there, as schematics like this illustrate, or this one. And That's part of another thing. But yeah, the reality of being stationed there, in the middle of a very remote area, and that blast door, you could go by if there were roads, 100 feet away and not even see that blast door right there. Anyway, I just wanted to share those with you, as well as this portrait of a very handsome captain.
That's a handsome captain.
Yeah.
And that man meant business. If he said turn that key, you should turn that key. Very briefly, for anybody that's never visited the National Press Club, it is a location with the class, I think one could say, that one would want to see for an event like this. There is Robert Salas off to the left, and these shots were taken by me in 2013. Another one there. Again, a break time. And here's a shot of you, Bob, with somebody who we just lost and who I'm so glad I got to meet. Was there at the time. Actually,
Paul Hilliard, yes.
When he came forward, he was the highest ranking government official in history to come forward and say, I take this seriously. And Paul Hilliard was the former Secretary of Defense for Canada, major player. And us with some of our colleagues at the end of the event.
Yes.
It was a spectacular job. And again, thanks eternally to the amazing human machine that we call Stephen Bassett for creating this.
Yeah, I agree, Peter. Stephen Bassett has done a great job through the years pushing for disclosure.
Yes.
And I've thoroughly enjoyed that 2013 event. It almost felt like an actual hearing, didn't it?
It surely did. And again, as anybody that's not aware, Stephen had received a massive donation to create this. And he had the funds to hire at an extraordinarily generous rate serving senators or congressional representatives to simply take some time. I think it was scheduled at a time that Congress was not in session. And not surprisingly, not a single one of them showed up, but none of them were willing, again, to risk ridicule by being on that panel in this simulated congressional investigation. And Steve did the next best thing, and he hired a number of retired congressional, representatives and one retired senator. And it was very interesting. I think they were all honest, and they did as good a job as they could in doing what they would normally do if it were a real official event, and to watch some of their minds change. And many of them were very frank about it in their closing remarks. So again, you are following in marvelous footsteps here, and the location is the best location you could have to underscore the seriousness of this event next month.
Yes, Peter. Let me just mention real quickly, we've still got our fundraising event going. If you visit my Facebook page, there's a link there, but it's a GoFundMe page. We're almost to the goal of 13,000, and I know that sounds like a lot of money, but it is an amount that's necessary to put this on and do a good job.
In fact, of the 13,000, you have raised about 12,000 already, haven't you?
Yes, we're over 12,000. I think we're, last count, 12,101.
Well, this is one of those moments where listeners and viewers who are interested in this subject take it seriously, and beyond that, want to see real change occur, where you can make a difference. So please consider visiting Bob's Facebook page and making a donation. And let's put this over the top.
Peter, if I might add, I've
Please.
got a special offer just for your audience.
Yes.
Anyone who donates $100 or more, I will send them one of my book, Faded Giant, signed copy, and it'll be sent to their home free of charge.
This is it right here. The fact is, it's a really important book to add to your UFO library and very unique. Again, Robert Hastings' extraordinary volume, UFOs and Nukes, is a groundbreaker. But there are bloody few accounts by individuals involved in UFO nuclear events. I highly recommend it. So please consider, for both of those reasons, support this work. We have now about 5 minutes before we go to our break. Bob, any closing remarks before we turn it over to our panel?
I just want to thank everybody out there who has donated to this effort. I consider it a personal responsibility because I had the incident. I was a witness to it. And these incidents we'll be talking about, including my own, are well documented, are well supported. They really happened. They're real. Again, I want to thank everyone because this has been a grassroots effort. It's we've had so many donors come forward, some very generous donors, by the way, but I appreciate all of them. We are going to do the absolute best job we can of making a strong case for open hearings, and that's our only purpose. To get the Congress to take this seriously, because if they don't, they will be, let's say, stymied by those keeping the secrets, and they're going to drag their feet as long as they can, unless we give them a push. So, yeah, this is what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Bravo, my friend. Gentlemen, Ryan, Jason, Shane, sum up your thoughts, or the floor is yours for the next 3 minutes. Go nuts.
Well, Bob, I just wanted to say thank you. About 7 years ago, when I first met my partner, I had been very timid to tell dates that I was a UFO researcher. But when I first met her and I told her I was a UFO researcher, I expected her to walk away and never talk to me. And her first question for me was, have you ever read Faded Giant? I'm not kidding you.
No.
And I knew it was meant to be. And we've been together ever since. So I have to thank you for that. I truly do. And for many other things as well.
Where does one find a girl like that?
See, New York City,
That's
Peter,
awesome.
of all places. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason.
That's great. That's a great story. She read it before you did.
Yep.
Well, I just want to say congrats again, Bob. I mean, I wish you all the luck in the world with this thing. I think it's hugely important. So I do hope the press and the government pay attention and take it seriously. And thank you again for telling people how they can donate to help make this event more impactful. And thank you for the generous offer about the book. I'm going to have to look into that.
Okay,
great. Shane.
Yeah, same for me, Bob. Thank you so much for doing this, and I do appreciate the book offer, and I'm going to take you up on that myself. But it's I can't think really of a more important facet of the UAP issue than the relationship with our nuclear facilities and weapons, that kind of thing. So I think it's hugely important, and to me, it's almost a no-brainer that the government itself and the media and others would take that as one of the more serious aspects of UAP. And so I wish you the most success on this, because I think it's really important.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you all. Thank you for having me on, Peter. It's good to see you again in good health, I hope. And
yes. Absolutely. And please send my love to Marilyn. Let me know how I can assist in promoting once you make the next announcement about this event, and we'll mention that at the top of the relevant show. And Jason and Ryan and Shane and I will return to Meanwhile Here on Earth after this break. Don't go away.
Hey members, the new KGRA-DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA-DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA-DB.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button, so just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth. Peter Robbins here with my guests, Ryan Sprague, Jason Mclellan, and Shane Hurd. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Everybody
Thank
in
you.
a nice time at your break? Have a bite to eat, watch a movie, go for a drive?
It was the best break ever.
Yeah.
There was quite a line at the restroom, but I made it. I made it in time.
Well,
Had a nice
first
bourbon, poured it fresh in.
just one.
That's quite an act to follow, Peter, with
Well,
Bob
you know,
Salas.
it's
I don't know how we're
industrial
gonna do
size
this.
here.
Whoa.
First thing, hey, it's great to see you guys again.
It's amazing to see you, Peter.
You too.
Too
I
much
know.
time.
I don't think there
mean,
was any hesitation when you reached out to us. We all immediately texted each other. We're like, "Let's do this."
Mm-hmm.
Did you coordinate your outfits? What are you going to wear? I don't know. What are you going to wear?
We usually
Lighting.
coordinate our drinks more than our outfits, but not today.
I know.
Yes, that's true.
They didn't tell me they were drinking. I got boring coffee over here.
Like me, consult with your hair and makeup and wardrobe people. You
Yes.
want to do these. We're all professionals. One more look at this extraordinary book, except that is not even as good an image as holding it up here.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
I have to stand by my word on these things, as you guys are probably starting to know, that moment where, as a writer, as a published author, you get a manuscript from a friend who says, please read this and let me know what you think. It's like, oh my gosh, I've arrived, and oh no, what if I don't like it? I either have to lie or feign that I've lost my memory, or tell them the truth. This is a wonderful book.
It is.
Thank goodness.
Nice.
Yours are too. I thought we could pick up here with a brief anecdote from me. There is, again, something about Robert's story, and somebody should make it into a film. It really warrants it. In the interview that we did months ago, he very kindly allowed me to push on certain questions and to create that sense of what it was like. For us, it's books and movies and reading about it in history, but these were analog times. And if you were the weapons officer and you got that go code, you know, and it had been confirmed and reconfirmed, like failsafe, you could only assume the worst. And you sat at a console that was designed so that the officer that would have to turn the key, you each had a key, like for a door or a car, was not within your reach. And you would have to turn them at the exact same moment. And in doing so, take responsibility for possibly starting or contributing to World War III and the destruction of the planet that we live on. And we had several talks before he went on the air on things I could ask him and not ask him. Where were the missiles targeted to? I can't tell you that, idiot. But we can make fair assumptions. But if the other officer had hesitation and did not turn their key on your order, you were within your rights to remove your Colt government-issued .45 caliber automatic, kill them, and bring the next officer in to follow that order. The level of tension had to have been, you know, hard for us to imagine as civilians. But again, you know, you are selected for the job. Hopefully your training will pay off. Thank God it never had to happen. What I wanted to share with you is in 2010, a friend of mine who lives in Roswell, who at the time worked in law enforcement, and ironically, when he was in the Air Force, served as a nuclear weapons specialist on a base in Suffolk, England called RAF Bentwaters. Complete coincidence. Was shifted back to Nellis Air Force Base several months before the famed December 1980 event, and knew in passing some of the players. That aside, he had a friend, a retired military officer who was fascinated with these missile silos, and upon retirement decided to buy one. You know, they were very inexpensive. Most of them couldn't be used because of the level of toxicity, and they were filled in. But he became an expert on the subject. So much so that at one point consulting the Pentagon to see if he could find a manual for a certain type of missile silo, I think it was an Atlas 1, he learned that all this stuff had been analog and it had never been transferred to computer, and it was lost. And he made it his business to learn everything he could and became the de facto consultant to the Pentagon on these extraordinary things. He turned one over into a fabulous apartment for doomsday-oriented people. But when, again, this is 2010, Pat had said to me, he is renovating one of the few left that can be, you know, touched. And his aim is to restore it either as a museum or, you know, as an investment to sell to somebody else, to what it would have been like in 1962. Do you want to go visit? Well, let me think about it for a micron of a second. And he and I and one of his colleagues and his wife went, and we went down. And we spent about 4 hours down there. And the illusion for me was like being down there 4 weeks, partly because of your imagination running insanely wild, partly because when we went down, the weather was ominous and overcast with dark clouds. And when we came up, it was like a cartoon day with beautiful cumulus clouds and beautiful blue skies. But I took some pictures, and I thought I would share them with you. It's a way to just segue into the rest of our show.
Cool.
Very cool.
This was, again, Strategic Air Command, 1961 to 62, Walker Air Force Base, which is just on the prairie outside of Roswell proper, 579th Strategic Missile Squadron, and this was an Atlas II silo. I think they were larger, and I'm not sure, but I think they had a bigger payload than the Minutemen. But the exterior was this, a very low profile, to put it mildly. And I guess about a 20-minute, half an hour drive from Roswell proper out on the prairie. Heading down. Blast door. 3 tons, that door. And engineered to withstand a nuclear blast. Hinges. Heading down. Now, one of the things I learned, and we were there, I think it was July, but that far underground, the temperature was a constant, 60 degrees or so, I forget. But whatever it was fairly constant year round because it was so far below the surface. Now, again, this was very much a work in progress, but this would have been the room where all of the big analog, panels and desk would have been, screens for whatever passed for screen back then. And then this is the route into that particular silo with all of these very heavy doors closing behind you. And finally, we walk into this little containment area onto this metal scaffolding, and you look down into a pitch dark opening more than 100 feet deep where the missile would have sat.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I just thought those cheery images would be a nice way to begin our segue here. Again, the idea for me of, I don't know about you guys, I've been in this longer than you have, but you may have similar experience relative to abduction per se. And I've worked or been over the shoulder of Bud Hopkins working several hundred cases over the decades. And I occasionally think to myself, like once or twice a year, I have this micro epiphany of this is really happening. This is not some combination of psychological aberrations, sleep paralysis, other extraordinary complex conditions. This is really happening. And the fact that some truly anomalous UFOs and their occupants are able to shut down our nuclear weapons and affect our nuclear facilities as well. I'm old enough to remember an East Coast blackout that happened in 1965. And I was actually in a car heading out of Manhattan toward Connecticut. I was in the jump seat talking to my friend, the driver, and my peripheral vision was on the rearview mirror. And in it was the lights of Manhattan. And while we're talking, it went black. And I turned around and the city was gone. The reason I bring it up is because one of my first two mentors, a remarkable guy who, had he lived, I think would have been an international force in UFO studies, a tough, no-nonsense New York City police detective named Pete Mazzola, who was also a crack UFO investigator. And by the late 70s had put together an organization with hundreds of members, I think 800 or 900 at its peak, most of whom were police officers around the United States. And it was called the SBI, the Scientific Bureau of Investigation. And Pete had friends who were in the state police, and state police patrolled the area around the Indian Point nuclear facility. And they observed UFOs over the nuclear facility when the power outage went. Now, there's rumors and myths around this. I've never seen any serious major studies on it. But because of Pete's credibility and the credibility of his witnesses, brother officers, I will take it that that happened as well. And again, I think the most extraordinary challenge that faces people like us who choose to put ourselves in the public eye in this work is find that line between educating people and doing it in a manner, let's face it, it has to be entertaining or hold their attention. When you get to a story like this, the challenge is amped up, I think. And I'm thinking out loud here, of course, but resonate with any of you and any thoughts on what I'm saying that we can move forward with this on?
Yeah, I'll touch on that briefly, Peter. I mean, all three of us, I think, have had brushes with the entertainment industry when it comes to talking about this topic. And I mean, I know I worked with Jason personally on a TV show, and you're there, cameras are around, they're telling you to like stand here, you're going to be talking about this, kind of giving you an idea, and you're kind of in performance mode, which is, that's television or whatever. But then you have those moments where the cameras are off, you're talking to a witness or an experiencer, and it puts you right back in your shoes of, wow, like you said, this isn't just entertainment. This is this person's life. This affected them dramatically. And that goes, for Bob as well. I mean, I covered Bob's story on a Travel Channel show. And I just remember, filming at like midnight here in New York City. I was so tired. I was frustrated. And I literally just like, tell me what to say. Just tell me what you want me to say. Okay, so this guy, missiles, yeah, they shut on. It was really weird. Boom. And then, a few months later when the show came out and I actually saw the reenactments of what Bob went through, then that's when I was like, wow, this isn't entertainment. This isn't just to tell a good story. This could feasibly change the world, if something good or bad were to happen. So, yeah, I think that does resonate a lot, especially for all of us who do these shows, who have podcasts. It's one thing to create content, but it's a whole other thing to investigate and research. And you just got to try to find that marriage, I think, between the two.
Jason?
Right now, it's an interesting time because the focus is on, really the general public and getting the general public interested and putting pressure on the government, getting the government interested. There's this whole back and forth happening right now. But, when it comes to the general public, entertainment, I agree, is a very powerful tool, and we all use that. I think it's incredibly helpful for public education, but I also, and I know you guys do too, I really like giving lectures and panel discussions and things for the general public at things like Comic-Cons around the country, because that's where the general public is, and that's where this entertainment-hungry pop culture crowd is. Yeah. But when we say entertainment, I mean, I think it's important to separate just thinking about, goofy superhero movies and things that we enjoy watching, because that's what we're talking about when we talk about entertainment. Things have to be presented in a way that people are going to want to digest it. They're going to want to spend their time watching it or listening to it. I mean, this show, for example, you don't want to make it boring because people aren't going to listen. You have to make it something that's entertaining, something that interests them. If it's something that is an interest they have, that is going to be entertaining to them, whether or not we're talking about something serious like these topics are, or something, more casual or fun. Something serious can be presented in an entertaining way, and I think that's what a lot of these shows try to do, and many of them fall short. But I think reaching the general public, it has to be entertaining. But with that said, when you're talking about something as scary as nukes and being controlled by these unknown objects in the sky, that's terrifying. Yeah. But so we don't want to present it in a terrifying way, but in an entertaining way, and that's a delicate balance. And I don't really know the right way to do that, because everybody accepts news differently. They deal with things differently. So you can't do something that's a perfect fit for everybody. You try to hit everybody using a variety of approaches. So I think this press club event is amazing. Yeah. And I will say it is fascinating when you think about it, and you're thinking about this topic, UFOs and nuclear weapons, or UFOs and their attraction to nuclear material. Isn't it fascinating that the National UFO Reporting Center, Peter Davenport, unless he's moved, that's based in an old missile silo, right? How fascinating is that, and perfect for this topic?
Very cool. Yeah, we all kind of serve in different roles, right? Sometimes we're investigators, sometimes we're journalists, sometimes we are entertainers. And if you think back to going to school and you had a professor lecturing, who is more interesting to listen to, and who most likely would you retain the information from? It's somebody that's not boring and drones on, but it's somebody, who is entertaining and lively. And I think it's also a reflection of just how you personally view the topic. If it excites you, that's going to come across, Yeah, that's right. And I think that's really important. And I would like to say, too, that when it comes to, abduction or contactees, experiencers, I know when I read Ryan's book, it really moved me. I had such compassion and empathy for the people in those stories. And my primary role as an investigator with MUFON. And, we do get abduction cases. And when I do get such a case, I'm hyper vigilant to be caring and understanding and recognize that this person, is likely traumatized. And yet they reached out, they wanted to make a report to somebody. What an awesome responsibility that is upon my shoulders to treat them with the dignity and the respect and the care that they deserve. Having had this experience. And, while an investigator is kind of in the judgment business, you judge evidence and not people, really. And so I think that's, an important thing that we all need to remember when we're here doing this, that there's a broad spectrum of people who we're reaching, and it might be someone with zero knowledge, or it might be somebody that had an experience that maybe we've never even had. So, it's a serious responsibility that we have, but at the same time, we want to be effective in teaching and communicating. And if that requires us to, be lighthearted and fun, and we talk about our bourbon and stuff like that, that's in fun and jest. But the reality is that we have, a very awesome responsibility to folks, and we do take that seriously.
You inadvertently lead into my next question that I wanted to pose to you guys. But first, I learned years ago, partly in working in the theater, through what I learned from the scientific work of Dr. Wilhelm Reich, and in terms of drama, from Shakespeare. As Ryan knows, embedded in some of Shakespeare's greatest tragedies are moments of extreme human humor. It's like, funny things happen at funerals sometimes, and you can't make believe they don't. That, in a dire tragedy, you have two guards, and one of them is expressing discomfort because he has to urinate. And, you can't just walk away from your post, and the other one says, well, turn around and do it. And so the actors, and this would have been in the old Globe with, wonderfully, happily uneducated, but theater-loving people standing, he simply turns around and faces the wall. And in that moment of tragedy, everybody laughs. What happens when you laugh? You take in oxygen. You remake contact with your environment. If other people are laughing, even if it's momentary, you make contact with them. Sometimes in giving the most serious talks that I've ever given, I will find something, hopefully integrated and not, he just told a joke kind of thing, where people can laugh for a moment. Bud Hopkins was a master of that, and David Jacobs too, to find a way to diffuse a moment, bring people back into deeper contact with what you're talking about, and to be human. But to the point, here we are. One can say that the articles in December of 2017 in the New York Times kind of set the media wheels in motion to change their official positions. I frankly think it occurred earlier in 2017 when the Times sent Ralph Blumenthal up to Syracuse to interview a UFO statistician named Cheryl Costa. And that article was taken very seriously. I kind of chart the beginning of this sea change to that. But with the ridicule losing its power, so much so that a politician, a scientist, a person in public life who could risk real ridicule or even their career now is not that worried about doing it, which is great. But we've been caught up in almost, a drama, a soap opera, a grand opera of personalities, opposing views, temperamental individuals, folks who they're in it, but they're in it to a degree to gratify their egos, and we all have them. Experiencers and abductees, as has almost always been the case, are on the fringes. And without acknowledging these people, the ones who have the courage to go public, especially back in the day, and to never forget that constitutes a certain kind of human heroism. And putting yourself on the line and remembering that there are people out there who live lives of, quiet desperation, that they live in the middle of nowhere. They've had these experiences. They don't have a UFO group or a mental health professional or a seminar to reach out to, old-fashioned area, and to never forget these people, to always fully acknowledge them, to prioritize them, and encourage them to the degree that they want to join us, so to say. I don't think I can stress that strong enough.
I can touch on that here. I think... Oh, I'm sorry, Shane. I was just going to say, I think the whole experiencer movement is ahead of its time, and it always has been. You hear of these messages that contactees were given, or experiencers in the 80s, the 90s, up until today. And it's so hard for the general public to accept these experiences as authentic and genuine, especially when the mainstream media is just shoving the whole nuts and bolts military things down our throats right now. And that's fine. That's what the public is hearing about, and that's what's going to legitimize the topic. So I think you're right. I think the experiencers have always been there. They always will be there. And I struggle every day with all right, well, do we keep going down this road of strictly military UFO encounters? But what about, like you said, the hundreds of civilians and experiencers out there who aren't military, who have things that they could add to the data that the government is essentially going to look at? It's hard. And I think a lot of people are having this struggle right now with when will there be a place for the experiencers to tell their stories and be a part of the conversation happening worldwide right now. I don't pretend to have an answer for that, but it's interesting. It's interesting. We're living in an age of an acknowledgement by the U.S. government of UFOs, which is a huge step. But then when do we go to the next steps of experiencers, the paranormal, and everything in between? So that's my little 2 cents.
I had a question.
I was going to say something similar. Yeah, is that, I know I started out as sort of a nuts and bolts ufologist, but now after having investigated hundreds of cases and doing the research and being, involved with folks just like yourself, to me, that is an incomplete explanation of what we're experiencing. And I think what's going to happen, yes, we need to start there with the public, right? Okay, these are real, that's one thing. And that's why we see like ATIP and those folks, not even the government, not saying anything about who's piloting these crafts yet, right? That's not even on the plate yet, because people, that's too much too soon, right? So I think what's going to happen, we'll get the nuts and bolts piece in place. People will accept that, but really, that's the least important. What's really important is who this is, and experiencers, contactees, abductees. They know, we don't, right? And so I think at some point we're going to transition from, nuts and bolts mainstream, accepting that, to now the attention is going to go on those folks and the information that they have. So I think that's, I'm taking a little further than Ryan. I just think that's where it has to go. That's up for debate. And then just one other thing I wanted to add is, I can't comment, and I know people are making awesome comments in there. I just want to say I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not able to do it. And I just want to thank Audrey and Matthew and Michael and Doc and all you guys and all your comments. Thanks so much. But I just can't do it for whatever reason. So, but at any rate, that was my 2 cents on that topic.
And I apologize for not even having my chat box open right now. Jason, your thoughts?
Sure. So, it's like we mentioned earlier, we're looking at this from a public education standpoint. If we look at it that way, think about how for more than 70 years, we've had government research into this taking place and the public interest in it and just building, for all those decades. But look where we still are. And my point earlier, we're still back to that very initial point with the general public, where the majority of the general public is still stuck at that initial step of not even believing that there are unknowns flying around in our airspace. So if it's that hard to do a sell on something as, simplistic as that and easily provable as that, and now we've got official government statements on the record and official government programs maybe coming forward. It's really easy to understand how thinking about other topics in this field are going to be a much harder sell going forward when we can't even get over this first baby step with the majority of the general public. But that being said, back to your point earlier, Peter, with social media, I think that has given a voice to the voiceless. It's given a platform to everybody. So, if we're talking about experiencers or contactees, now there's this whole sea of the world's population out there on social media, where people have been able to gravitate toward each other, find other people with similar experiences, share those experiences, have somebody to talk to, have somebody to listen to them, and listen to other people's experiences too. I think social media has been tremendously helpful for that, bringing those voices forward and letting people who have had experiences themselves understand that they're not alone, and there's this huge population out there in the world who has their own experiences, and they can share these and talk to each other and feel less weird. You know, they're not these outcasts they thought they once were. But also, to your point, Peter, that you made, that's social media has given everybody a platform, for better or worse. You know, we do have a lot of charlatans out there, a lot of people seeking attention, people using social media for dangerous purposes. But, you know, looking at it from a positive element, I think it has given a lot of people, that voice they needed, or the ears they needed to be able to share these stories and feel like they're part of, other shared experiences.
Let's jump into something wonderfully uncomfortable. Over the past few years, I've been seeing something that's always been going on, but growing in a way that it couldn't have before because it didn't have the public forum that it has. And it has to do with the big questions that we ask. Are they good or are they bad? Wrong question. In that, for starters, it occurred to me fairly early on, if even as the most conservative astronomers or space scientists might now begrudgingly acknowledge, there are probably tens of millions of sun-sized stars with millions of Earth-sized planets about the same difference from them. If one is a person of faith, you can say, well, there's your basic takeoff for the miracle of God's creation, and another 7 days allegorically, and we have human-like intelligence. If you are a pragmatist or looking at it scientifically, we have the basic elements to create the temperature and the chemistry for that primordial ooze that will sooner or later have that first one-celled animal, and we're off and running. It's occurred to me for decades that it's probably as unlikely that we are alone as an intelligent species in the universe, and I use the word intelligent advisedly, as there's one other one, and they found us. We are probably being visited by a myriad of other intelligences coming from other parts of the cosmos, other dimensions, the center of the Earth. Who the F knows? But that we're, in asking, are they good or are they bad, we're completely losing track of this wonderful intercontinental, intergalactic United Nations of other intelligence that may be coming and going with impunity, and may have very different thoughts about this graduate experiment gone horribly wrong, or this effort on their part to help along this evolving species that is now, developing in some ways, but still very recalcitrant. In some ways, we in the controlling leadership area of world affairs, we're still Neanderthal. We're still clubbing each other to death over where the line is drawn in the Earth. Why? Well, you're on my side of the line now, and that's why I'm going to kill your ass. And when I began in this work, most of the stats that I was able to at least visualize were that you had contactees, and welcome the Space Brothers folks, and people who, that first generation of abductees, who were not having a good time of it, who overall were dealing with some trauma or upset, as I think even with the knowledge that I carry around, if I wake up tonight and there's a greenish light coming under the door and little beings glowing around my bed, I will freak the hell out and possibly leave this work. And you guys can bid on my library. I don't think I would handle it with a lot of grace, but I am fully aware and respectful of the fact that for just as long, people have come forward and said, my contact experience was very positive, beatific, transcendent in the best possible way. The ones that I'm dealing with, I love, and I know they love me, or I think I know. And we are seeing, in short, these emerging factions. What's exacerbating it now and almost theatricalizing it in a way, I'll bring it down to two high visibility people, both of whom I respect in their different areas. One is Luis Elizondo, the other is Ray Hernandez. I have heard many people's opinions about these two men and the work they're involved in doing. I feel saddened in a way that Ray, who I admire and like, seems to feel the need to negate cases like the ones Bud Hopkins was well known for handling, but also Kathleen Martin and John Mack to a degree, certainly, where people are having negative experiences, rather than acknowledge that both things are happening, and very likely because of different intelligences with different motivations. I've heard people refer to Louis as, obviously a government agent of some sort who is purely involved in, giving more credence to developing another generation of weapons technology, and this fantasy of, we're going to whoop ET's ass Independence Day style. Yeah, good luck with that. So we have these two camps, and they're growing, and they're both saying each other to a degree is wrong, or their motivations are off. The database that Ray's group, Peer, at this point has put together is very impressive and very positive, overwhelmingly. I have no problem with it or the verification of it, but I have a real problem with trying to say the other data is wrong or driven by some darker human need or what have you. And I've gone on long enough. Who wants to grab this hot potato from me? Not all at once.
I'll hop in. So I just interviewed on my show Peter Mick West. He's a noted skeptic, has been able to, in his opinion, explain away the Tic Tac video, the Navy UFO videos. And on the flip side, the following week, I interviewed a former F-16 fighter pilot who had the complete opposite view as Mick West when it came to these UFO videos. So I think what we're really seeing here in the issue with what maybe Elizondo's doing and Hernandez is they're not sharing their data. They're not sharing their information with one another. Maybe they are. I can't say that for sure. But I think what it comes down to is that's fine, but we don't have all the data from even higher up. And I think that's where the true divide lies, is the non-transparency by the government, by possibly our scientific institutions when it comes to this topic. So we're then left to, imagine what that data might be. That's why we live in an age of conspiracy theory right now, is because a lot of people do not trust what the government has to say because they aren't as transparent as we would like. So we will make up our own truth in different ways. So I think what we're seeing here is just a frustration by everyone on every side of the UFO research community not having enough information or data to truly progress. So, while I agree with certain points that both Hernandez and Elizondo say, it doesn't get us anywhere because they're not, the data just isn't there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we can only work off of what we have. So I give both sides credit for trying to do that, but I don't know. Where do we go from there when we don't have all the information? I just don't know. It's frustrating to me as well.
Gentlemen?
I would say, you know, so much of what we're dealing with is subjective. So like your point earlier, Peter, good and bad. Well, who gets to say what's good and what's bad, right? Like even among humans, like the Taliban, they probably think they're good. They think America's bad. America thinks they're good and that the Taliban's bad. You know, one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. I mean, it all depends on the position. But even more than that, even a more base level, it's like, you know, take cattle, for instance. Some people raise them by hand and bottle feed them, and they wash them and pretty them up, and they show them and take excellent care of them. And other people just fatten them up, shoot them, and eat them. Now, if you're a cow, are humans good or bad? I guess it depends. Were you the cow that got eaten, or were you the cow that was babied, right? That's subjective. And to you know, plant your stake in the continent and say it's good or it's bad. I don't, you can't do that. And it applies even more so to unknown intelligences. You know, do they even have a sense of good and bad? Is there a morality at all? Is that purely human? We don't think animals have morality, right? So, I mean, it's a very difficult situation. And then to Ryan's point, I know as an investigator, you know, it's a constant balance and struggle with data versus, you know, testimony. And, you know, even a person who has had an experience, that is subjective. Now, there are points of data within that subjective experience, right? On this date, at this time, you know, at this location, blah, blah, blah. And even then an investigator, when they have to interpret what the data says and what the testimony is, that's subjective, right? And even when you get cold, hard data, like, I'm sorry, but when you look at those videos, the Tic Tac, the Go Fast, and the gimbal, you know, there is data there, just even on that little screen, that, you know, there's altitude and there's speed and wind direction and there's optical and there's, you know, infrared and blah, blah, blah. This is good, cold, hard data. But why isn't that proof? Some people think it is, but some don't. I mean, really, what is proof? Proof is only what the majority will accept as proof. Otherwise, it gets ignored, right? So, I mean, this is the world that we're living in ufology, and it's frustrating. And so I think it's just super important to be open-minded. So, yes, as you know, Mick West and some of his arguments are irritating to those who, you know, are more open and receptive. You know, both camps probably got some points there. And the problem is what happens is, you know, humans, we get polarized. And so now you got the debunkery group and then you got the true believers and nothing in the middle. Well, that's not true. Most people are in the middle. You know, it's these extreme edges that get all the attention. But the reality is most of us are accepting of good hard data. And some of us are accepting of a person's experience and the obvious impact it made on them. So, I mean, just the whole topic is, you know, it's a hot potato, it's slippery, it's all those things. But the point is, it can be researched, it can be scientifically examined, but we just got to settle down and work together to get to that end goal of identifying what this is. If that's going to happen, I don't know. I'm trying my best, but
to take something down to the baseline here, because it has been a challenge from the moment that somebody in the summer of 1947 said, I'm going to look into this on my own, you know, somebody like us maybe, which has to do with monitoring the field, setting the bar at a level where, I mean, in an ideal world, oh, you've doctored data or you've not told the truth about this, your license to practice ufology is suspended. Now, let's say you are a MUFON field investigator, as you are, and you cheat. You know, you want to get something in the journal and you fudge some facts and you make something up, and, you know, as is your normal habit, you pay somebody to witness something and you write it up and your ego is gratified. They find out. they remove your certification. There is no equivalent in ufology of a bar association or an American Medical Association. In fact, to be able to call yourself a ufologist, I believe the qualifications are essentially touch your finger to your nose, turn around 3 times, and you are one. It's magical. Now, once you are one, then you can put forward whatever your belief, your conclusions, your positions, your fears are, with the caveat of prove me wrong. How do I do that? Because proof is I don't have that carburetor from that Barb Lazar craft, or I don't have that pancreas from this kind of alien. Gee, I really don't have any physical, well, I sort of, but, well, it's open to, for me, what it comes down to is do your best work, have some kind of ethical code that you actually stick to, set the bar as high as you can for yourself, be of goodwill, but don't back away from being openly critical when you see something that you feel is complete and total bullshit, or that is simply not true in a way that you can at least demonstrate, if not perfectly, to a degree. And, if you make an error or you are caught in an error, don't try to tough guy your way out of it and hope and know that sooner or later people will forget. Acknowledge it, clean it up, and move on, and continue to try to do your best work. Thoughts, reactions to our wonderfully unregulated field of study.
Yeah, I'll say, Peter, I mean, full transparency to your viewers and listeners, you are my mentor in this field. You have been since the moment I got involved. We meet as much as, possible here in New York City. Not recently, unfortunately, I know.
Yeah,
but
regularly up until, and we will again.
There were 2 things you taught me when I first got involved in the research field, and that was to have empathy for those who have the experiences, because I was very judgy when I first got involved. I'm like, that's not true, or this, that. Was to have empathy. You were not there when this happened, so you have to go in, with that in mind, not to judge these people, just as they wouldn't judge me for having had a sighting or an experience. The second thing you taught me was that you have to be willing to admit when you're wrong in this field, and you have to be willing to change your mind. When you're dealing with such an amorphous phenomenon, everyone is going to bend and shape it to their own beliefs, their own standards. So I think you're right. I think as long as you hold yourself to a certain, whether you want to call it ethical standard or bar of research, Shane is a nuts and bolts scientific MUFON field investigator. I am not. I am all about the people and testimony. But Shane and I get along because my testimony can help his data, and his data can help my testimony. That's why I love Cheryl Costa. She's going to tell me where there's a UFO flap and when it last happened in a certain city, town, zip code. And I'm going to go to that town and interview the people who saw those things. So there's room for everyone. We are a ragtag group, and I think that's awesome. But it does come with its own challenges, for sure.
It does indeed.
Well put.
You make that point very well. I'm curious. I want to hear what Jason has to say, but just to complete a thought, that as we evolve in this work, if we're serious about it, if it remains compelling enough for us, we find our place in it. I happen to be pretty much equally comfortable one-to-one with people who have really been through it. And I think part of that is it's in my nature. I'm function overall in my life well in high stress situations. The suicide prevention organization that I worked for 8 years, the Samaritans International, they're all over the world, but mostly in what we used to call Commonwealth countries. And they have walk-in centers in many of them. In America, they have centers in a few major cities, but nothing like the UK or Australia, what have you. And it's only on the phone. You don't meet these people in person. You go through a training, which I would say is incredibly valuable to anybody that wants to be of more value to other people they love and people they'll never meet, of recognizing signs, of learning to steer toward the pain, of being empathetic, being a good listener, something that's problematic for many of us, not telling people what they should do or being a false psychiatrist. But the burnout rate, when I did it, was about a year. I did it for 8 years and burned out several times and in the end flamed out. But I'm also good in the field. I really love being in libraries and archives and research institutes and putting pieces together with paper. Good in an interview situation, but I certainly have met quite a number of people who are really good in one or two of these areas and may be terrible interfacing with people. They just are not good at that. Or other people who are wonderful interfacing with individuals, ones who have had the most amazing experience of their life or who have been truly shaken to their core. We find our place. And this thing called ufology will continue in an unregulated manner. And then at a certain point, something will happen. You know, if we want to call it disclosure, good luck having it be official disclosure. I don't see the American government in any current incarnation or imagined one willingly just, here it all is, folks. I think the only thing I can imagine is if their hand is forced in some almost science fiction scenario, because it's never really happened. Otherwise, the best we can do is the best we can do. And to just keep doing it and know that we are moving toward creating a critical mass within society. I think we're under the illusion sometimes that most of us are ready for this. The four of us probably could weather through, and a number of our friends and family, you know, if it hits the fan big time. But the great majority of Americans and people out there are not ready. And that's one reason why disclosure is an interesting concept to wrestle with. And how do you release things in a manner and in an order where they're not going to freak out most of the general population?
It's something I think that it's important to keep in mind, and it's hard to keep in mind. I lose track of it at some points, but the UFO journey that we're all on, this quest for more answers, it's an individual journey. It really is, regardless of whether you belong to a group like MUFON or anything else. UFOs is not a church. We don't go somewhere and we're not given a book and told you have to believe this way, this way, this way. Come back next week and recite to me everything you're believing from this point forward. It's not a religion, and it shouldn't be treated as such. Mm-hmm. And we have to approach our personal quests, our personal journeys on this exploration that way. You know, we all choose which evidence we view as being weighty or not. You know, we'll take what this person says and apply it to our thought process, our current journey, and discard, you know, this piece over here and move forward. It's different for everybody. You don't have to believe this, and this person, everything they say, because they're leaders in the UFO field. Really don't do that. That is a dangerous path to go down. Yes, we all choose the individual people, the individual books, the individual information that we're going to consider in our own personal journey through this. That's really important to this subject, and to keeping an open mind. And like Ryan said, being able and willing to change your mind, because you're going to.
Yeah.
You're muted, Peter.
Our personal journey of this evening is coming to an end. And before I thank you all and we say goodnight for now, very quickly, Ryan, where can people get in touch with you, see you, make contact with you, visit your website?
Yeah, absolutely. I do the Somewhere in the Skies podcast every Monday. You can find that on YouTube. You can find it at somewhereintheskies.com. And other than that, be on the lookout for the new season of Ancient Aliens that I'm going to be on. That was quite a journey, a personal journey, if I may say so. And
Very cool.
also at rogueplanet.tv, where Jason, Shane, me, and Maureen Ellsbury have a lot of fun over there as well.
And please send my love and best wishes to Maureen. We'll have to include her next time. This shouldn't just be a guys' club. Shane, again, besides that location, is there any place special people can reach you or find out what you're up to?
Yeah, I'm out there on Facebook under my name. And then also Hurd Ranch at AOL.com. You can email me. And also Shane at rogueplanet.tv.
And Mr. Jason Mclellan, my dear friend, yourself besides?
Peter, it's so good to see you. I've missed you, my friend. Twitter's a great place to follow everything I do. I'm very active on Twitter, so Twitter at Acentric. But our website, rogueplanet.tv, that's where we post a lot of the creative things we do. That's where our UFO podcast is, Unknown. And Unknown for the 2022 season, Ryan and my other Rogue Planet colleagues are going to be diving in the entire year focused on Roswell. We're going to go down some interesting rabbit holes and spend an entire year revisiting Roswell.
Brilliant.
Yes.
And to remind everybody that the 75th anniversary of Roswell comes up next year, the 75th anniversary of the modern age of UFOs. It's going to be quite a year. This has been Meanwhile Here on Earth with Peter Robbins and my special guest tonight, Ryan Sprague, Jason Mclellan, Shane Hurd, and of course, Robert Salas. Next week, my guests will be Robert Long and James Bauk, longtime UFO researchers and investigators based here in my home state of New York, and they are the co-authors of a remarkable new book, unlike anything that's ever been written in this specific area of study in ufology, UFO abduction, the control factor. If you have enjoyed this show, please subscribe to it, tell your friends about it. See you next week, same time, same station. Stay well, stand up for what you believe in, and be kind.